everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to do a recommendations video in connection with SpringAthon. So SpringAthon is a readathon that I'm doing together with Emma from A Cup of Books on BookTube, and there's also going to be an Instagram challenge which has been announced now that I will be doing together with Juliana from The Blank Garden. I will link all of the information about the readathon in the hosts links and everything below. Today I wanted to share a few recommendations for books to be possibly picked for the SpringAthon. So I know that in terms of nature writing, I think probably the most popular sort of subgenre within nature writing is nature memoirs. I think in general memoirs is probably the most popular nonfiction out there. The ability to connect with a personal narrative that a memoir allows for, and I think it has that relatability often and more of an intimate look into someone's life and feelings. And I think one of the things that nature memoirs tend to do is particularly explore the author's relationship with the natural world. So even though my personal preference is more towards the sciencey natural histories, I thought that I would share a few of the nature memoirs that I really liked and that you might be interested in checking out, either for the SpringAthon or just in general. But these all sort of cover the prompts for the SpringAthon readathon as well. So I'm sure you're gonna recognize quite a few books that I mentioned in this video. The first one is probably the most obvious one, and that is HS4 Hawk by Helen Macdonald. This is a grief memoir, especially talking about Helen Macdonald's loss of her father. After his passing, she decides to take up training a goshawk, and so it's sort of looking at falconry and the training of the goshawk. Through that you see her connection with the natural world and the solace that she finds in doing this. She also talks a lot about T.H. White, who sort of tried to do a similar thing. I think one of the strengths to this book is that because she is exploring grief, I think it is a pretty good entry point if you haven't read a lot of nature nonfiction specifically, but you do like memoirs. This could be a pretty good entryway into reading more nature-related nonfiction writing. It isn't my personal favorite. I did like it, but I think it was also one of the earliest nature nonfiction books that I read, so I would be interested to revisit this one soon. So there's that one that would fit for the bird prompt, and another one that would fit perfectly with the bird prompt for the SpringAthon is Corvus Alive with Birds by Esther Woolfson. This author opens her home to all kinds of Corvus birds. So Corvus is the family for crows, ravens, magpies, a few others that I can't think of the proper name for. She explores both her personal relationship with these birds, but also some of the observations that she does of living so closely with them. I think it is a perfect example of how a connection with nature can bring out some of the best in a writer. I really enjoyed this one. I would strongly recommend, especially if you do like birds. This is really a really good one to add to your list. Next, I want to talk about two books for the animal prompt. Of course, the bird ones could work as well. The first I have is The Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery. This is again a really popular one, talking about the author's close encounters with some specific octopus individuals. And again, it is a perfect blend of observations done through those kind of close encounters and meetings with an animal, and some of the things that she discovers through that, but also talks about her personal feelings and experiences and passion that she feels in becoming so fascinated by the natural world. I feel like especially her passion and enthusiasm really shines through in this book, and I think that is something that I could strongly relate to as a person who has found nature to be such an endlessly fascinating and engaging thing to read about and to discover physically as well. So this is definitely one that I would recommend, especially if you don't usually read natural histories or nature writing. I think the way that the author explores her topic through a lot of anecdotes, I think makes it a very accessible book to read. The other one is stronger on the memoir side of things, and that is A Honeybee Heart Has 5 Openings, A Year of Keeping Bees by Helen Jukes. So this is looking at the author taking up beekeeping for a year, and through the beekeeping process that she goes on, she explores the bees themselves and the natural behavior, but also she talks a lot about, I think, the comfort that she finds in the beekeeping itself. She takes the challenge on because of needing something to connect her with the world and to have something to be so fully dedicated to, I think. The feeling of finding comfort and inspiration, I think, as well in doing something related to nature. So a good one in terms of memoirs, I think. Then next I have two books that would fit with the plant prompt. So first is Lab Girl, A Story of Trees, Science and Love by Hope Jahren. Again, a really popular one. So I'm trying to mix popular ones with maybe lesser known memoirs. So this one is basically a nature scientist's memoir of her work and how she got interested in nature in the first place, what she does as part of her work, and some of her personal challenges, both related to the work itself and trying to find research funding and things like that, but also personal senses of loss and how she has dealt with these things. It is very honest and unflinching and raw in places, and I think it's really popular, I think, because of that. The author's willingness to show you everything that she's feeling without any pretense. And I especially like the scientist's perspective on her relationship with nature. So there's that one, and of course she studies plants, so that would work perfectly. And then the other one is also fitting with the travel prompt. So we have Hidden Nature, A Voyage of Discovery by Alys Fowler. So this one is looking at the author both exploring her sexuality and exploring the canals of the UK. So basically she decides to start kayaking the canals, and through that you see some of her observations along the way. The plant prompt works with the cover and also some of the plants that she sees along the way, but also the travel, I think, is especially suitable for this because it's both an internal traveling that she does, but also the actual physical movement of the canals. And I think the author has some really beautiful points to make about the wildlife that she sees along the way of her journey. And then last up we have two books that are related to water or coastal things, and they also could work for the travel prompt, honestly. So we have The Salt Path by Raynor Winn. The author finds out that she and her husband have lost their home and their work because their work was related to farming. So both disappear in one go, and they also find out that the husband has an illness that is incurable, and so in order to deal with all of these life-changing events falling at the same time, they decide to walk the southwest coast path, and as a thing to do and pass time, but also as a sort of a way to try to deal physically and mentally with what is happening to them. Of course, the travel side of things, it is appropriate because they're chronicling the movement and the walking itself along the coast path, and because they're along the coast, they're also always close to water. It's a beautiful book, and I especially liked the way that she explores homelessness, which is something that I feel like isn't discussed in books enough, and something that I really appreciated her exploring from her perspective of having lost their home so recently, and also through some of the experiences of the people that they meet on the path. It's a beautiful book, and I would strongly recommend this one. And then the last one I've talked about so many times that I don't think it needs a lot of description, but that is Waterfalls of Stars by Roseanne Alexander, My 10 Years on the Island of Skoma. This chronicles 10 years that the author and her husband moved and live on the island of Skoma as wardens of the island. And what I love about this book in particular is the way that she describes and discusses the natural world and the wildlife on the island. So of course an island setting means that they're surrounded by water, and the water itself is really significant in the fact that they are isolated because of it. It means that they cannot easily travel to anywhere else. So for most of the year they're completely isolated with only each other. there's something about the way that she looks at these things, everything that she experiences and she observes. There's a detail, there's a richness to her descriptions in themselves, but also I really appreciate her perspective and the way that she looks at these things with so much humility and so much passion for the world. So if you are someone who is interested in the natural world, this is a must read in my opinion. But even if you are someone who is quite new to nature memoirs or nature nonfiction, I feel like the passion that this author has and her beautiful writing would probably have the ability to sell you on this kind of writing. I think it is wonderful and is one of my favorites, so I would strongly recommend this one. So those are the nature memoirs that I wanted to share with you today. Do let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts about them, or if you have any recommendations for me based on these kind of books. I'm always open for those, especially nature nonfiction. I'm always open for those. But yeah, I hope you are having a good day, and I hope you are excited for the SpringAthon next month, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.